Welcome back to the Fourth and Gold NFL podcast. We're almost at free agency. Things are starting to heat up. Decisions are being made. Players are being released. Players are being traded. And we're going to cover everything that's been going on. Paul is not with us this week, so I am riding solo. He will be back next week for all of the reaction to the early moves in free agency. But I think there's only one place to start. The news that has just dropped today that the Chicago Bears have traded DJ Moore to the Buffalo Bills. As part of the deal, the Bears have given the Bills a fifth-round pick, and in exchange, the Bills have given their second-round pick this year. Now, DJ Moore is a funny one to me because when I've watched him, I feel like he's disinterested a lot of the time on the field. And, you could look at the play in the playoffs against the Rams. That wasn't a good decision, in my opinion, by Caleb. But DJ Moore kind of didn't look like he was alert to the route. And I'm not just going to call that one out. There's a lot of moments where I just watch him and think, is his head really in this game? But on the flip side, he can be quiet for 90% of the game. And then when the big play needs to be made, he can make it. Like we saw in the overtime game against the Packers, he comes down with the big catch to end the game. But I like this move for the Bears. I really think at this point, they don't need to be paying DJ Moore big money because of the emergence of Colston Loveland. They really found something in the second half of the season with him. The one I'm really excited for is Luther Burden. I think he could be very, very good. He just needs to come along a little bit, I think, and gain Ben Johnson's trust. And I think this could be a big-time player. And you've got Rome Odunze. Maybe needs to, you hope that he's going to be healthier this year. I'm not sure that he's a number one per se, but maybe Ben Johnson will have some plans in the draft following this move. They do need a center as well, given that Dorman retired. But overall, I think this is a good move for the Bears. Now, when we look at it from a Bills point of view, if you've been a regular viewer of this podcast, you'll know that my gripe with the Bills and how they don't have any difference makers. That's what you hear from me at receiver. So even if DJ Moore is not, peak DJ Moore anymore, he's an upgrade on what the Bills have at receiver. Certainly on the outside, you're looking at Josh Palmer, Keon Coleman. Okay, Shakir's the slot receiver. They do like their tight end play. But this is an addition. Hopefully we get the best from DJ Moore for Josh Allen, because you kind of saw it just with Brandon Cooks last year. Brandon Cooks made a difference on that team. Guess what? You've got Josh Allen. If you've got a Brandon Cooks up there in age, and he's had a great career, don't get me wrong, but even he was still able to produce more than a lot of these receivers that they've got on their team. So I'm all for weapons, new weapons, joining the Bills. I think the best thing about this deal for the Bills is that DJ Moore is under contract for another 4 years. And the cap hit every year is $24.5 million. So when you look at it from that point of view, that's a great deal. I wouldn't entertain any extension I just wouldn't change the deal for DJ Moore. Sorry, I'm not going to give you more. And if they do, then I don't think this is such a good deal. The terms are great right now, and you haven't had to give up too much. I mean, you got back a fifth, you sent over a second. Fair enough. There was another big trade made this week, and it is the Chiefs trading cornerback Trent McDuffie to the Rams. Now, the deal was a first, a fifth, a sixth this year, and a third next year. That's quite a high price. I mean, if you look at previous trades at the cornerback position recently, source from the Jets to the Colts, that was 2 firsts. That's a lot to give up for a corner. And the Rams have paid the premium, but for a position of need. And Trent McDuffie, as we've seen earlier in his relatively short NFL career, he's a playmaker. They needed this. It doesn't solve I don't think this solves their weaknesses on the outside, but it's still a difference maker in their secondary. And I do think he will be a difference maker. I get it. Like last year, when you watch the play, I at least feel like he gave up more plays than he has done previously, but he set the bar pretty high in his first 2 years. And I'm not going to hold that against him, considering the Chiefs overall, collectively, had a down year last year. So this is definitely a big ad for the Rams. As a 49ers fan, I hate it, but it is what it is. The NFC West gets stronger. When you look at the trade package, the Rams have given up their first round pick, not the first round pick they acquired from the Falcons. So they still have pick 13 to add another difference maker to their team. So the Rams, I think, are primed for another run here. They've got a lot of youth on their team already. So adding McDuffie, no brainer, and we'll see what they do at 13. This is going to be another contending year, I think, for them. When you look at this from the Chiefs' point of view, it's clear that they are being anchored by their cap situation. Like they are in cap hell. It's not good. They've had to restructure over a number of years. Like last year, they restructured Mahomes' deal. They restructured Chris Jones's deal. Now his number is massive this year. I think his cap hit is 44 million. That's pretty tough considering Jones is, unbelievable career, unbelievable player. But it's not prime Chris Jones anymore. And I just wonder if the Chiefs can actually put together or improve their roster to a point where they can be a contender this year. Because we know that Mahomes is coming back from a significant injury. It won't surprise me if Mahomes is there week 1. But it can't just all be on Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like this roster, they've struggled. Like they've struggled to improve it as of late. And we've seen depth go. Like they've released Jawan Taylor, right tackle. That was a big cap saving. And Mike Danner, I don't pretend to really know who that really is on their team. To be honest, he's a defensive end, another cap saving. So when I look at their team, they're going to have to hit in the draft. Like they're going to have to hit big because they're not going to be major players in free agency, I don't think. So all this talk a few weeks ago of when Tyreek Hill was released, unless Tyreek Hill is going to play on the minimum, which I don't think he's going to do, that's a non-starter. That really is. And if they do work out a deal with Hill, I don't see how that makes any sense because it's basically going to prevent them from doing anything else. So I do think that this McDuffie move was forced. Like, I don't think they would have wanted to see McDuffie go out the door. But realistically, they knew they had no chance of giving him a market level deal. It is the end of the Sonic and Knuckles era. I am, of course, referring to the Lions trading Big Dave Montgomery to the Texans. I think this is something that had to happen because Big Dave Montgomery, I think he's still a capable number 1 running back for a team. I'm not saying that he's a top 10 running back, but he can still produce. And he's probably what the Texans need. They need a bruising back to complement Woody Marks. And this clearly spells the end for Joe Mixon. I don't really know the details behind why he missed the whole season, but that was a huge loss for them. He really was the glue for them for the offense the year previous that because he was still great. So I don't know the details. I think it's a shame that whatever the reason is, that was a big loss for them. So adding Big Dave, that I think could be huge. I mean, he had less touches this year, and he still amassed, I think, around 700 rushing yards. He still had big games, like when he went into Baltimore and just dominated them, really. So it was a no brainer that he still feels that he can contribute in a big way. And I think the Lions have done the right thing to give him that opportunity to play in the AFC. So that was smart. Keep him out of the conference and allow him to, yeah, I think be a number one. We'll see, because I think Woody Marks had a good year, but he was a rookie, and Montgomery, I think, can still do a lot for them. When you look at the Lions' point of view, in my mind, they have one of the best players in the league in running back Jahmyr Gibbs. And to me, watching the Lions last year, a lot of it didn't make sense, like the rotations, just to keep everyone happy. Like Gibbs would have a full drive, and he would be his electric self, and then he'd have to come out of the game for a drive. And so, to me, like, now is the time. They're going to have to pay Gibbs, and now is the time to unleash him in full and say, you are the number one back, and you're going to get high volume, just like we've seen with the likes of Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Run CMC. I think Gibbs is a superstar. Like, he is one of those players where you could get the ball on the 5 yard line. If you leave a gap, he will take it to the house. He can score from anywhere. And it's not just running the ball. He can catch out the backfield, make you miss, and the acceleration that he has, yeah, he can score from anywhere. And so now is the time to really feed him. And I would imagine this is going to be like number one pick in fantasy. The Jets have franchise tagged Breece Hall. So I think the tag for running back is around the 14 million mark. That's a great payday for Breece Hall if he was to play on it. But I guess the question is, should the Jets extend, trade, or play him on the tag? I'm going to first look at it from Breece Hall's point of view. I hate the fact that they tagged him. I was getting excited that he was going to hit the open market and he was going to get the opportunity to play for a better team. And so now, with the franchise tag, the decision's been made for him. He's going to be a Jet, it looks like. And so he may as well look to get that extension and hope in the future that he can be traded, because we've seen with the Jets, it's going to be hard for them to break history, I think. Like, this is a failing organization, a failing franchise, and you don't want to see players like Breece Hall stuck on these teams, but it is what it is. Now, from the Jets' point of view, this is a no-brainer to franchise tag Breece Hall. They should be looking to extend him, keep him happy, at least money-wise, because you look at their offensive roster and you say, who are the difference makers? Outside of really Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall right now. They've invested a lot of draft capital into that offensive line. The name of the tight end is failing me, but he's pretty good. But outside of that, yeah, it's a struggle. And of course, a lot of it is because of the anchoring they've had at quarterback. But they'd be foolish to let Breece Hall walk out the door. This guy is a really good running back. I think if he went to a better team, like, you'd really see it. You'd really see it. But I think you see it with the Jets anyway. You can see that he's an all-around back. So this is a good move for the Jets. I think a bad move for Breece Hall. It's being reported that the Cardinals are releasing Kyler Murray. I think he was due 19.5 million at some point in mid-March. I'm sure they've been trying to find trade suitors and it just hasn't happened. So inevitably, you leak out to the media, we're planning to release him. You never know. An 11th hour team, could they come in? It's doubtful. So it looks like Murray will be a free agent in the middle of next week. And he becomes, to me, an attractive option for teams looking for a quarterback, simply because his contract is subject to offset, which means that I think he's due around 35 to 40 million from the Cardinals this year. He's going to go to a team and say, I will take a minimum contract with you because the rest of the money is going to be paid out by the Cardinals. There is no reason for Murray to demand 30 million or 40 million. He's not going to get that anyway. So make yourself attractive. I'll play on a minimum contract. I'm getting 30 to 35 to 40 million as a result of this release. And so I'm looking at teams and, I think they're pretty obvious. The teams that should be interested, might be interested. But the two that I'm looking at are the Vikings and the Falcons, because the Vikings situation, as I have said probably every week for a number of weeks now, it's murky because of JJ McCarthy. Is Kyler Murray the answer? I'm sure he's not. But when you look at the Cardinals setup, I don't think this was a great place to play quarterback. Now, Murray's got his own limitations, but I don't think it would be fair to say, well, the Cardinals haven't been good simply because of Kyler Murray. Like, having faced this guy twice a year for a number of years, he is a headache. Like, if you don't set the edge one time, the amount of times against the 49ers, this guy has just flown to the end zone, 70-yard touchdown, like a cakewalk for him. This is a dangerous player. I'm not saying that he is necessarily a starter, like he's going to have to work his way back to that. Like, he might not get there, but in a good situation with a good play caller, with great weapons, we've seen it. We've seen quarterbacks play better than, the team that they were drafted on. So I'd be interested to see if Kyler Murray could convince the Vikings, who have got an abundance of weapons, a great caller in Kevin O'Connell. I'm sure that the Vikings are looking at other options as well, but also the Falcons, because they're releasing Cousins. Penix is injured. They've got a superstar running back in Bijan Robinson. They've got a true number one receiver in Drake London. And I know we like to make fun, but Kyle Pitts played better last year. This should be, at least, a good place to play. Let's see what Stefanski can bring, because we know Stefanski is a running game expert. I've had questions over his passing game, but this setup is a far better setup than he's probably had ever at the Browns. So why not Kyler Murray? Why not throw him into the ring there? I guess the question for teams looking for a quarterback in free agency is, who's an attractive option now? Like, let's just use Kyler Murray for an example. Would you rather take Kyler Murray on a 1-year deal, like a 1-year prove-it deal, where you're giving him the minimum contract, or would you take the gamble on a Malik Willis, for example, who has looked good in a small sample size, but reports are suggesting that you're going to have to pay him at least 30 million per year. And I don't know whether that's a 3-year deal, whether that's a 4-year deal. It's going to depend on the interest level. So you've got to weigh that up. Who would you rather have? The known entity of Kyler Murray, we know his limitations. We also know his strengths when he's at his best. Or do you go with Malik Willis, who is really an unknown entity, but what we've seen from him has been very interesting and exciting. If it was me personally and I had both options on the table, I probably would go with the Malik Willis option just because he's shown me enough where I think his running ability is elite and his passing game has improved quite significantly. I'm not saying that, he's going to be Josh Allen. We know he's not going to be at that level. But under the right circumstances, and as long as that deal is not, crazy like a 50 million per year deal, I think 30 million sort of 3-year deal, which, when we look at the details, would be like a 1 or 2 year deal with an out. I think I would rather roll the dice with Malik Willis than Kyler Murray. But whoever doesn't get the teams that don't get Malik Willis, Kyler Murray is a viable bridge quarterback, and who knows what we'll see from him in a better setup, because the Cardinals, it's not a place that has shown that you can succeed. The Colts placed the transition tag on Daniel Jones. I don't know a lot of the details behind this outside of his contract is 37.8 million. And the main detail is that other teams can come in and make an offer to Jones. And if they are able to agree a deal with him, they won't have to give up 2 first-round picks, unlike other tags. So the question is, are other teams gonna come into play here for Daniel Jones? My feeling is not, because that 37.8 million number is already too high for me. Like, if you're playing him on a 1-year deal at that, like say the Colts decide we don't really have any other better options, fair enough. Like, it's not hurting your future at the end of the day. But I certainly would tread carefully with Jones. We've kind of seen this movie before. And what happened when he got paid with the Giants? It all kind of fell apart. So this isn't a quarterback that is going to carry a less than roster. Like, you're going to have to stack the deck around him. And so you don't want to give up massive cap space on his contract. Like, this is someone that ideally you would pay below market, like way below market value, and stack your team, and then you could justify Jones can play, but to sort of say this is a 40 million per year quarterback, for me he's not. And I know that he played well for a reasonable amount of time last year, but just before he got injured, the play dipped. And okay, they were playing bigger games, but it kind of just showed you can't build your franchise around this quarterback. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a great professional and he is capable. But as I said, you cannot overpay Daniel Jones and think that your team is going to be successful, because it won't be. So there you have it for this week. It's a lighter edition of the Fourth and Goal podcast. Next week, expect a lot from us. Free agency begins on Monday effectively. Teams will be able to start announcing terms on Monday. I'm really excited. It's always a crazy day, a crazy week, So next week, me and Paul will break down all of the deals being made, all of the moves being made. And yeah, we will get through this off-season together. We thank you for your continued viewership. Catch us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and we'll see you next week.